Hello, I'm Stacy Keach. Join me right now for Mysterious Places as we travel to northwestern New Mexico.
High atop a mesa in the southwestern United States, a Native American sings a ceremonial song of his ancestors. "90 miles north, archaeologists spend an entire day drilling for tree core samples. In an aircraft above the same site, a research team observes strange markings on the Earth's surface, unknown roads perhaps, and all seem to lead to the same place. A woman crafts unusual pottery. A man photographs the sun's position. A traveler explores a remote path. These are the modern players in an ancient drama, all linked to a single mystery, all driven by a single question, all drawn here to this canyon of ancient dreams, Chaco Canyon, New Mexico.
Chaco Canyon is an archaeological site rich with information, but much of it is still underground. In fact, archaeologists believe that for every one excavated structure, there may be hundreds unexcavated awaiting inspection. But even our modest glimpse allows us a remarkable opportunity, an opportunity to slowly, carefully piece together the story of one of America's first civilizations.
Here is the story of a remarkable people and a place frozen in time. A story of how a civilization was crafted and why its voice still echoes across 1,000 years. Our story begins in a most unlikely place. They call it the Four Corners region of the United States, the point where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico meet. Scattered throughout these arid flatlands and soaring mesas are some of the world's most important archaeological ruins, ruins that prove the existence of a magnificent ancient civilization. We call the builders of this civilization the Anasazi, or Ancient Ones, and of all the ruins they left behind, none are as spectacular as those in Chaco Canyon. Located about 100 miles northwest of Albuquerque, Chaco Canyon lies within the shallow San Juan Basin. It is here that we find a wealth of clues as to the origins of the Anasazi, clues that stretch out over 15 miles and encompass dozens of mysterious ancient structures. In fact, there's so much here that the canyon has been declared a National Historic Park by the U.S. government. And so, for a visitor, the canyon's ghosts can still beckon. Especially at Pueblo Bonito, a sprawling D-shaped city with an intricate maze of underground rooms and ceremonial chambers called kivas. Archaeologist Dabney Ford of the National Park Service has devoted her life to exploring the ruins at Chaco.
We're up in the eastern part of Pueblo Bonito, and this is a bank of elevated kivas. There are 8 or 10 of them up here. And it's wonderful because you can walk around through these and actually look down into the kivas. We're walking down into the inner part of Pueblo Bonito through a series of doors and passageways. And in effect, we're walking through time, back in time. These are some early walls that date to the late 900s, and then walk through some earlier material into the 1000s through these doors. These doors seem really small. You have to stoop to get through them, but in fact, the floors were actually about 3 feet lower than this. There's fill here, so you would have stepped up to go through these, not stoop over like we have to now. Again, a monstrous room with some intact plaster, intact mortar, beautiful masonry. This is called Type 4 masonry and dates to about the latest for this building, the 1080s, into an alignment of doors that really show the pre-planning of this building.
As we explore these ancient chambers and passageways, we are immediately struck by the mysteries. Who were the Anasazi? How did they survive in such a harsh climate? What do the so-called Kivas tell us about their religious life? Was astronomy a factor in the design of Casa Rinconada? Finally, and perhaps most perplexing, what was it like living in Chaco Canyon around the year 1000 AD? We are not the first to ask such questions. August 1849, the U.S. Army conducts a military mission inside Navajo territory. Among the ranks, First Lieutenant James Henry Simpson. While scouting the territory, Simpson makes a remarkable discovery. He comes upon the ruins of the Anasazi, their villages, their cities, all mysteriously abandoned centuries ago. Nearly half a century later, in 1895, it was Richard Wetherell's turn. A rancher by trade but archaeologist by instinct, Wetherill set up camp at Pueblo Bonito. The excavation began. Before long, shells and turquoise were found in a sealed burial cache, and seemingly everywhere jewelry, tools, and strange black and white pottery. But in 1899, Wetherill's expedition was cut short. Accused of pilfering the ruins, his license to dig was revoked by the U.S. government. In his later years, Wetherill remained in Chaco Canyon, turning his attention back to ranching. But on June 22, 1910, a dispute with a local Navajo exploded in violence. Richard Wetherill was shot to death just half a mile west of Pueblo Bonito, where visitors can still see his grave today. But even with the demise of the Wetherill era, interest in Chaco Canyon did not die. Throughout the 20th century, archaeologists like Neil M. Judd and those with the Chaco Project continued to explore the ruins, each seeking the missing link, the lost clue. But still, there was no grand vision, no answer to the most basic question: what was Chaco Canyon like 1,000 years ago? Must the answer be left to the imagination? Perhaps the imagination of artists like Bill Hatch. A native of the Southwest and a student of its history, Bill often wonders what Chaco might have been like. We brought him to Pueblo Bonito and asked him to share his vision. Is this indeed what Pueblo Bonito looked like at its peak? While Bill Hatch may use his imagination, others rely on hard evidence. They are today's archaeologists, and using the latest technology, they've uncovered the most compelling evidence to date regarding the secrets of the Anasazi. When we return.
Stay with us as we continue our investigation of Chaco Canyon, New Mexico.
Here's a mysterious places travel tip. From Albuquerque, Chaco Canyon is a 2.5-hour drive north. Since the area is remote, some prefer to visit on a day trip. For the more rugged, there are camping facilities located right on the site.
We're back at Chaco Canyon with Secrets of the Anasazi.
More than a century after its rediscovery, Chaco Canyon still embraces many untold secrets. Yet today's researchers, armed with the latest technology, are beginning to get real answers. For archaeologist Dabney Ford and her colleague Tom Wines, every stone, tree, and pottery shard holds a wealth of knowledge. The intricate masonry that Lieutenant Simpson marveled at so many years ago is also a brilliant testament to the sophisticated building techniques used by the Anasazi, and an excellent source for dating the ruins.
These are some of the masonry types that we can see in Pueblo Bonito, and this is type 1 that dates to about the 800s. It's 1 stone width wide, and you could build up to 2 stories in height, but any higher than that and the walls would topple. They weren't wide enough to support additional stories. This is type 2 and type 3, which date to the mid-1000s. You see very distinctive banding with large blocks and chinked with smaller ones. And these walls are wide, so that the wider they could make them by using this core and veneer, the taller they could make the walls. And then the final style, type 4, up, as you can see up there, is very intricate small stones, and that gave some flexibility to the walls, because now they're 3 and 4 and maybe even 5 stories high, and they needed that kind of flexibility in order to keep them standing.
Chaco architecture holds other important clues to dating the ruins. The Anasazi used trees as wooden support beams, and by relying on the technique of tree ring dating, today's archaeologists can determine the age of the wood, thereby uncovering the year a particular building was built. Archaeologist Tom Wines explains the process using a cross-section sample.
The important criteria, of course, is the variability in the ring width. That allows us to date it, to match it up with a master chronology of dry and wet years here in the Southwest, and from that we can tell exactly which year is which on this particular log. For instance, we know the pith date on this one is 941, and that it was cut, or presumably cut. It died at 1030, presumably cut by the Anasazi to be used as a roofing timber.
Armed with the scientific method for dating the ruins, archaeologists can now piece together more accurate theories. One of these theories explains the apparent connection between Pueblo Bonito and its neighbor, Chetro Kettle. Archaeologists now believe that once these two great complexes were actually one, that buried beneath this expanse of sand and dirt lies a connecting building. With further excavation, it is likely they will one day know for sure. There are, however, some mysteries at Chaco Canyon which seem destined to remain just that, mysteries.
We're located here in the Talus ruin, one of the large ruins built up against the cliffs. And you can notice from the architecture, or we can notice from the architecture here, this is one of the earliest parts of the ruin here. And what we're seeing here is several of the viga stub ends coming through from the room inside. These were tree ring dated around 1040 AD. You can also see part of a doorway coming through here, which has been blocked on the inside. And later on, after this thing was built, they put in a large amount of masonry and construction and built this thing much higher. We're not sure why, but we do know there's a prehistoric road up on top that comes over the cliff here, and this may have had something to do with a staircase or access from the prehistoric road down to the ruin here.
These pictures, prepared by NASA using data from an aerial research flight, reveal an intricate network of perfectly straight roads, crisscrossing 400 miles and connecting with over 75 distant communities called outliers. Since their discovery in the 1970s, the roads have continued to baffle scientists. Were they used to transport food and other goods to outlying villages, like here at Aztec, located 60 miles north of Chaco? Perhaps. But the Anasazi had no carts or horses. Were they ceremonial highways used for elaborate rituals? Possibly. Broken pottery, often associated with rituals of the dead, has been found scattered at Pueblo Alto, one of the key road sites. But does this prove anything? Even with modern technology, we may never know for sure. One thing we do know, however, is that ceremony was central to the Anasazi, and that many rituals, mysterious and inscrutable to modern man, played a key role in the lives of the ancient ones. Their descendants speak when we return.
We'll be right back with Mysterious Places. We now continue with Mysterious Places.
The sun beats down on the parched earth, as harsh and unforgiving as it was over 10 centuries ago. Yet the people of Chaco Canyon worked the land. Using a sophisticated network of water-controlled ditches and dams, they created an agricultural oasis, and as always, the sun was of crucial importance. Casa Rinconada is the largest of the great kivas found at Chaco Canyon. It poses many compelling astronomical questions, questions that have intrigued Park Ranger G.B. Cornucopia.
This is a building called Casa Rinconada. It's a round circular building. The halfway point of the building is where I'm standing. And at the halfway point of the year, which we call the equinox, and that singular spot on the horizon over here, we have the sun rising right at that spot. The only time of year it hits that spot and corresponds with the halfway point of this year.
Photographing the sun's position at various times of the year and during the equinox, Cornucopia proves the point as we see in these photos. First, a photo taken on a regular day. Next, a photo taken at the same place during the equinox. The symmetry is startling. Since it is believed that the Anasazi worshiped the sun, this would seem to indicate that Casa Rinconada was indeed a sacred place, and, as is the custom of modern-day Native Americans, was the site of many religious ceremonies. Was this passageway used by the priest to make a dramatic ceremonial entrance? A question we may never know the answer to, or perhaps we will. These are the proud faces of the Pueblos, believed by many to be the true descendants of the Anasazi. If that's true, then what can we learn from their customs, beliefs, and ceremonies? Bellarmino has lived most of his life at Acoma, a pueblo located about 90 miles southeast of Chaco Canyon. Today, we meet him at Sky City, the oldest section of the pueblo dating back at least 800 years, possibly the same time Chaco Canyon was abandoned.
I think all my people migrated through the areas of through Utah, Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and various other places where all the ruins are. We have connections all over.
A musician, Bellarmino works with a dance troupe singing ancient songs of the Pueblos and keeping the traditions of his ancestors alive. Did the Anasazi at Chaco Canyon sing this same song? It appears we'll never know for sure, since they left behind no written records of their lives. Or did they? Norma Jean Juanico also lives at Sky City. Like her grandmother and mother before her, she practices the art of traditional Pueblo pottery making. Some think her designs may be a form of ancient communication.
The wedding vase here I made, and the way my grandmother told me, the parrot represents wealth, and it's beauty too. This is the rainbow of life.
Perhaps Norma Jean's designs do speak to us of how people lived in another time, of their joys and fears, their celebration of land and family. And perhaps the only reason we can't hear them is that we have yet to break the code. While this may be only a theory, one thing we do know for sure. The unique black and white pottery made by modern-day Pueblos bears more than a passing resemblance to the pottery discovered at Chaco Canyon. Just look. Piece together Chaco pottery shards and a beautiful mosaic emerges, an artistic mosaic embracing the same distinctive style and design of today's Pueblo pottery. Perhaps this lends additional support to the theory that the Pueblos are indeed the modern-day descendants of the Anasazi. And so, from the mesa at Sky City to the chambers of Pueblo Bonito, from high above the earth to the arid desert of Chaco Canyon, we can only begin to piece together the puzzle of the Anasazi, to learn what their lives were like, to put a human face on what up until now has been a civilization in ruins. Calling out over the centuries, the Anasazi speak to us. We must learn how to listen.
Perhaps there's only one way to truly appreciate the achievements of the Anasazi at Chaco Canyon, and that is to go there, to witness firsthand the challenging, barren conditions under which they flourished. From the arid heat of the summer to the snowy chill of winter, one can only admire a civilization with so little that created so much. Until next time, I'm Stacy Keach for Mysterious Places.